So she's like, let's get this guy into audition. And I was like a Bert Healy type. And I was like, oh, tell them I played Bert Healy. And they were like, no, they know.
We know.
Hey, homo man, hey, down for down.
Welcome to Lightweight's podcast. My name's Joe. Today we have Amir, who voices Alastor from HAZBIN Hotel.
You're the one who ruined my coat. I definitely remember you now.
For the audition, I did a scene from the first episode, and I still have it on my phone.
Have you ever shared it? You guys helped out so much. I asked so many fan questions at the very end. We also did a fun game of can he recognize the songs from HAZBIN Hotel?
In the song, when he goes, guitar solo, yeah, that was an improv.
We talk all about HAZBIN Hotel Season 1, Alastor's backstory, HAZBIN Hotel Season 2.
Well, they've started animating, I know that.
Amir's been in countless commercials, movies, TV shows.
I installed a new operating system, also updated all your critical software, and gave you antivirus and anti-spyware.
He is indigenous to
23.
With 23 flavors and every Dr. Pepper.
Plus what it's like working alongside Chris Rock and Will Ferrell. So if you're new, make sure to hit the subscribe button, leave a comment down below who else from HAZBIN Hotel you want me to have on the podcast. And give this video a like. Also check out the other episodes I had with Vivienne Medrano, the show creator, Richard Horvitz, the vocal director of both HAZBIN Hotel and Hell of a Boss, Brandon Rogers, Christina V. The list goes on and on. So again, make sure to subscribe. It really helps the channel so I can reach out and get more and more guests. We're almost at 100,000 subscribers, which is insane. So thank you guys so much for that. Without further ado, Amir. What's so fascinating to me is that the character that you voice was created by Vivienne when she was in middle school, high school, and now you get to bring it to life. What does that feel like for you to hold such an important character to not only her, but to the fandom?
It can be overwhelming. It can be overwhelming. You know, when I first auditioned for it, I was like, oh, this is a fun part, right? Cute. Let's go for it. Let's audition and see what happens. But I don't think I knew how long he had lived in Vivienne's heart until probably after we wrapped the season. Middle school is quite that's a core sort of part of your being. Do you know what I mean? I've had this for over a decade, well, maybe 2 decades, right? You know, I knew that it was, I knew sort of halfway through the season. It's funny because I didn't learn too much about the show as we were doing it on purpose, right? I just didn't want to be intimidated by concepts that people already had. I was just like, let me sort of trust Viv and Richard's direction. Let me trust my talent and do my best. But after we wrapped and you're waiting for it to come out and you go down internet rabbit holes and you learn how much he means to people, and how invested they are. Yeah, it's intimidating, and you really want to show up for people, and you really want to be thoughtful about what you say about him. I say this being thoughtful because I made a ridiculous joke on Twitter yesterday, which wasn't thoughtful and just stupid. But you know, you want to be smart about it. You want to have respect for Vivienne, for the fans. All of that said, as intimidating as it is, as much of a responsibility as it is, it's also a pretty huge honor. It's an honor. And so I love it.
Do you see a lot of creators hold such closeness to them as much as the HAZBIN cast and family and creator?
What do you mean hold closeness?
Viv always pulls out her phone and loves these characters so much. She wants to document every moment, and she's really in it. So for you to bring this guy to life, I just feel like is so, like you said, overwhelming that yeah. I can't fathom how much it really means.
Yeah, it's so funny how anytime we're around Viv, she's documenting everything, and
like her phone's always out.
Yeah,
I was hired on as a videographer, and she had her own camera doing her own thing, and right. I'm like, I'm right here. She's like, I got it.
Right. Yeah, it's funny. It's incredibly like sweet, and she's such a like sort of mom in that way. We just did this sing along this weekend, and she was sort of filming so much of it. It also reminds me, you know, I think she talked about it on here that. That, you know, you never know what she's gonna take. Like when I called her sloppy at a show once, and then she put it in Alastor's dialogue. You know, I love it. I love it, and I think that what's interesting about Vivienne, so far as I can tell, is that she is very serious. And has deep respect and is very thoughtful about the characters and the world, but she also understands how to be irreverent about it, how to play, how to have fun, how to make jokes. And so it's like she takes it seriously, but I don't think she takes herself that seriously. And so like I love that.
With you being an actor in movies, commercials, television shows, how does your prep work for an animated show compare to one where you're on screen? Because when you're doing animation, you're limited to just your voice and your cadences, and that's really how you portray this character. But you get the novelty of like facial expressions when you're doing movies.
Yeah.
Does that limit you when you're trying to figure out how to speak the dialogue?
Well, I don't like to do a ton of prep. I find that I like to find a lot sort of in the room and with the director or with the other actors if I'm doing that. But I don't give too much thought to like, oh, I won't have the benefit of my face or my body. It's just about sort of play and imagination and being willing to sort of let go and try things. And I also will sort of look over a script and go, okay, if they ask me to do a take where you just mess around a little bit, what might that look like? What directions might I want to go in? Is there a world where this section can be a little more menacing than it is on the page, a little more bitchy than it is on the page? Do you know what I mean? But that doesn't take very long. I think so much of the work has happened in the last 20 years that by the time I get the script, like a lot of it is sort of already living in me. I'm such an improviser. I'm such a sort of find it on the day type of person that, yeah, prep is not a huge thing for me. And part of that is because I don't tend to do big, meaty, on-camera roles, right? On camera, I don't have like these sort of intense dialogue scenes, and so I have intense dialogue scenes in HAZBIN, but because it's on the page in front of me and I don't need to memorize it, I don't do a ton of prep. Because it'll be there. I can trust that it'll be there.
Is that from all your training at Groundlings?
Yeah, Groundlings.
Can you explain what Groundlings is?
Oh, sure. So Groundlings is a improv and sketch comedy writing school and performance company in Los Angeles.
It's like the premier one.
Yeah, it's certainly the biggest and most important one in Los Angeles. And then Second City is that in Chicago. In New York, it was UCB, Upright Citizens Brigade, but I feel like they closed or they closed and reopened. I don't remember. But yeah, a lot of people from Saturday Night Live have come from Groundlings. And I started training there in my first year in Los Angeles 20 years ago.
And was that what you set out to do, was acting 20 years ago?
Yes. Yeah, I came here just for that. Very much for that.
Where'd you come from?
San Francisco.
Very
yeah.
cool.
And I was doing some commercials and animation up in San Francisco. And then I came down here and started training in improv and you know, getting great at it, and after I transitioned out of the school and started performing at the Groundlings, you know, I've been performing at the Groundlings sort of on and off. I'm not a company member, but they have alumni back from time to time. So I've been performing there on and off for like 20 years. And that just keeps you so fresh and flexible and malleable. So I bring a lot of that to every session, every shoot that I do.
How did you get into voice acting?
Well, in San Francisco, there's not a ton of work. And so if you have an agent that submits you for commercials, you have an agent that submits you for voiceover. That like your agent is submitting you for everything.
They're both the same.
Yeah. So I was doing it up there. When I got here, I got a voiceover agent right off the bat. They didn't really do anything for me. And then no, I take that back. That was my commercial agent that wasn't doing anything for me. I didn't have a voiceover agent, but I got a film and TV agent, and I was doing a TV show called Campus Ladies, and the casting director for Family Guy called up the producers of Campus Ladies, who were also managers, and they said, "Do you rep anyone who'd be right for this role of this Hindu spiritual guy on Family Guy that Peter consults?" And they said, "We don't rep anyone, but this guy Amir is on our show, Campus Ladies. He'd be great." I went there, I did the job, and from there I got a voiceover agent, and then just started grinding. And it was funny. I got my voiceover agent. Things were going really, really well for a while. I did Kung Fu Panda: Legends of Awesomeness. And after I booked Kung Fu Panda, I didn't book another voiceover job for 3 years.
And were you actively auditioning?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And I got to a place where I was like, I think I have to quit. I don't think this is right for me. I think I've sort of reached my limit.
But you were on Kung Fu for a while.
Yeah, sure. Through 3 seasons or something like that. But it was 3 years. 3 years is a long time to not book anything. So it's like, I guess I'm just not good at this anymore. I guess they just don't want me anymore. And so I was ready to quit. And at that same time, I changed commercial agents, and they had a voiceover department. And they were like, "You should come over for voiceover too." And I was like, "I think I'm done. I think I'm done." And I wasn't terribly sad about it. I was just like, I guess it's run its course. That happens in a career, right? Okay. I'll focus on what's working. At the time I was working a lot in commercials. I was getting paid. I was paying my rent. Great. And they said, "Just come over and give it a try." I was like, "All right." And I said, "But please, like, listen to my auditions. If they're not good, you don't have to like be nice. We can just end it. You can drop me after 3 weeks. I don't have to do this. I want to do this, but I don't have to." And so we talked 2 or 3 weeks later, and they were like, "Your auditions are great. You need to keep doing this." I was like, "All right." And then within 3 months, I booked like a commercial, a series, and one other thing. And I was like, okay, I guess we just needed to shake things up. And then 10 years later, I booked HAZBIN.
Do you think you did anything differently in your audition process? Or was it just not the right agency at the time?
Yeah, I don't think I did anything different. I really don't think I did. It used to be when you auditioned for voiceovers, you would go to the agency and their booth operators would direct you and edit it and send it off. Nowadays, you audition at home. You do it on your phone or on a mic, whatever you have, and you send it off. So I suppose it's possible that their booth directors were significantly better than before, or maybe that just their name is better, and so my auditions were getting listened to sooner, or with more positive ear.
What was working on Family Guy like?
Family Guy's great. Yeah, that was my first Seth MacFarlane experience.
Were you with him?
This was a long time ago. This was 20 years ago. I don't think he was there. But it's fast. You go in by yourself. You're certainly not recording with others. And I did Family Guy a couple times, and then I did a bunch of American Dads, and I still do American Dad semi-regularly. But it's such a well-oiled machine, that show, or both of those shows. The directors and the writers always know exactly what they want. So it's always very fast.
When you're on a show like American Dad, once you're in, are you kind of in to fill in those extra side characters wherever they need a voice?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times, yeah, you sort of become like part of the family in a way. And so there's been times where I get a call from American Dad and they're like, we need 4 words. Right.
I can do it.
Yeah. And then other times they'll be like, oh, we have this great big character for you. Like when I played, Ricky Martin on American Dad. Do you know what I mean? And so I don't know how they do it exactly. I mean, I guess that's the job of the casting director and the producers, but they have this sort of mental Rolodex of like where everybody's voices sit, right? Amir's like a little bit nasal, a little bit, his cadence is fast, right? And so that would work for this character, and they just pull me in. So yeah, I don't audition for American Dad or Family Guy.
They just knew you could do a great Ricky Martin.
I guess they just had a feeling. I don't know how that happened, but yeah. So after a while, yeah, you don't need to audition for those. They just know you. I'm sure they still have auditions for specific roles or for like, let's bring some new people into the mix. But yeah.
Viv is known for handpicking talent. Was there a moment that she knew she wanted you as part of HAZBIN?
It's funny. I am not certain about the sort of origin of this. I don't know if they were like having trouble finding the right guy, or if they, if she was just casting a wide net. But at some point, she had based part of Alastor's sort of core inspiration was the song "You're Never Fully Dressed Without a Smile" from Annie. And so one day, the character's name is Bert Healy. So one day she just went to YouTube and searched Bert Healy Annie or Bert Healy singing or something like that. And up came a bootleg of me performing that song at the Hollywood Bowl in 2018, 2019, one of those. This random guy had filmed the entire production, or that whole show, cut it up into little 5-10 minute bites, and just threw it up on YouTube. And I came up, and she went, I think that might be the guy. And she said, he sings it perfectly. I hope he's like also like a, an experienced voice actor. She had no idea. She had no clue. So she's like, let's get this guy into audition. And so they sent me the audition, and I was like a Bert Healy type. And I was like, oh, tell them I played Bert Healy. And they were like, no, they know.
We know.
So yeah, so I think after, she looked me up and she was like, oh, okay, he's worked for, 10 years as a voice actor. And so yeah, that's all it took. And it's funny, I reached out to the guy who uploaded it. I commented on the video, and I think I sent an email. I don't know if his email address was on his like YouTube bio, and I never heard back.
He has no idea.
I don't know if he does.
That's a crazy story.
Yeah.
Do you remember what that audition was like? Because you took over the role from a pilot where they just had other voice actors. Did you watch the pilot to see how to position the voice?
Well, I watched like a minute or so of the pilot
To see Alastor's lines.
to just sort of get a vibe of the show and of the pilot actors. But I was very worried that I would do an impression, and so I was like, don't watch too much. Just get just enough so that you can know what's going on, but then bring your own self to it. The voice itself is in a lot of ways kind of a stock voice that I think a lot of probably improv and sketch actors do, right? That, well, if it isn't time, it's a time for another edition of blah, 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 right? So the attitude and the cadence and the accent, those are all sort of standard, right? What I bring to it is where my voice just happens to sit, which is just luck, right? And then whatever I can infuse it with as far as his menace, his danger, his coyness, his sassiness. And so for the audition, I did a scene from the first episode, or it might have been the pilot, but I think it was from the first episode. And I sang You're Never Fully Dressed Without a Smile. And I did it sitting in my closet. And I still have it on my phone.
Have you ever shared it?
Like publicly?
Yeah.
No.
Would you ever?
I will at someday for sure. I think we all still have it on our phones. Like everyone's kept their auditions. It'd be fun to release them like either together or like one every week or something like that. And I don't know if the best time to do that is like before season 2 drops or like after season 5 drops. Do you know what I mean?
Right. There's so many options.
Like it might be amazing to look back on it when I'm in my 50s and be like, holy shit, and have people hear that. So yeah, I'm going to leave that. I trust Viv to know when's the best time to drop that. Viv and Amazon, I guess. But yeah, that'll be really fun. And I think what would be really fun too is if like someday if we do like a concert or something like that, to sing our audition songs. Like it'd be fun for me to perform You're Never Fully Dressed Without a Smile for people. Or like Blake sang, if I'm not mistaken, he sang Britney Spears' Toxic as Angel Dust, which I would love to hear him sing that song. I think it would be so hilarious.
What do you think makes the cast so close together?
Man, honestly, like luck. It's just luck. Really wild. It's
Never
really
do you
wild.
see the cast hanging out so much.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we don't hang out a ton outside of conventions.
But even then, you guys are always
That's
like,
true. That's true. When we are at conventions, there's no one who's like, I'm gonna do my own thing. Bye.
Yeah.
I was on a show once. Where in between takes, everyone's chairs were like next to each other, and there was one person who would just drag their chair away from everyone else and just like be on her phone. And it's like, all right, well, I guess she's doing her own thing. No, but we do. Yeah, you're right. Like when we do get to con, one of the reasons I love doing cons is because of them. Is because I get to spend time with them. But yeah, I mean, that's just luck, dude. Like Viv did not interview me before I got the job. She was like, he's experienced, he's talented, he's right for the part. And then it happened. And it just so happened that I love my cast and they love me, and it's amazing.
Has there ever been an offer or conversation for the live performance of HAZBIN Hotel?
I mean, there's not been an offer, but there's certainly been like conversations of like what would that look like? How could we do that? And you know, we've talked as a cast and with Sam, one of the
Sam Haft,
one of the musical creators. What would that look like? And I think there's so many possibilities, right? We just did this sing along this weekend at a con, and it was so fun and sort of I don't mean this negatively, but like sort of low rent. Do you know what I mean? Like Sam played the tracks and then we sang, couldn't hear ourselves over the fans of the show singing over us, right? And it was fun and emotional and beautiful and wild. And so I think that's a version, right? Another version is, you know, doing it with the fucking LA Philharmonic at the Bowl.
I got chills.
Do you know? And I think that there's space for that. I don't think that's by any means too ambitious. But it has to be sort of the right time, right? You can't sit, you know, you have to have the right sort of team in place, and all of that stuff is so over my head, right? But like, I don't know what goes into producing a show at the Bowl or at the Wiltern or at the, you know, Whiskey A Go-Go. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like there's so many versions that could happen, and I think there's so many people with ideas. And there's also, what's interesting is like, you know, I don't know if Amazon's ever had a show that deserved a show at the Bowl. Do you know what I mean? And so who at Amazon is going to sort of spearhead that? I have no idea. I'm sure there's someone. I'm not saying there's nobody, but I have no clue who that might be. So that takes time. That takes time.
With the live performance this past weekend, is there anyone's performances in particular that you're just blown away at every time they pick up the mic?
My first thought is Blake. Like, in part because just the fans' reaction to Blake is so feral. It's so wild. And he soaks it up and gives it back to them. And at one point he sang Poison. And in the middle of the song, he was wearing this leather jacket. He looked so fucking cool, Blake Roman. He's wearing this leather jacket. He takes off the leather jacket. And I was just like dying. Like I fell out of my chair and I was just like running around the stage. And then he threw the leather jacket and I picked it up and I was like, yay!
He's a rock star.
He's such a fucking rock star. I mean, everyone on the show is so incredibly talented, but there's something about the relationship between him and the fans that is different. And I think it's, you know, proven by the fact that like his two songs, Poison and Loser Baby, are just like hundreds of millions of streams. It's ludicrous.
The soundtrack just passed 1 billion.
It's nuts.
Do you get a plaque for that?
I
don't.
I think that. Wait, what's a plaque?
Like they used to give out for like 1 million album sales, but now they do it in streams. So you should be getting from like the RIAA, the Recording Industry of America, or whatever it is. It's coming your way.
I don't know because I'm not one of the creators of the song.
But as the performer, I think you still get it.
I mean, that'd be fantastic. That'd be insane. I think maybe if, yeah, I don't know. I've heard that it's different if it's a stream or if it's like the LP,
right?
Which is dropping soon.
Like the physical?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. They're dropping an actual like album.
How much Alastor merchandise do you have?
Do I have?
I just picture a shrine in the closet.
Well, not a ton. I just got the U2s, which is delightful.
Oh, it came out already?
It did not. But I got a prototype.
I wanted you to sign one, but they don't out yet.
Yes, I got a prototype. I have to show it off. I got a prototype, and that's very, very exciting. Is there a lot of merch? Okay, yes, there's a lot of merch, but there's not a ton of official merch.
Right.
Right. So I've got all the cards, and I've got a couple T-shirts, but I feel a little goofy wearing them. I feel like maybe I'll like sign them and like you know, auction them off for charity or something like that. I get a lot of gifts at conventions from fans, and so I have 2 shelves at home, one for physical stuff, one for art, and then I have a tiny place for the stuff that I like really want to display. And I think there's probably like 10 things there.
That's cool. Thinking back to these cons, are there any interactions that really stick out to you as that was so heartfelt of how much you mean to this person?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. You know, there's people who, and it's interesting. I don't think this is unique to HAZBIN necessarily, but it's no less meaningful. I think that as actors, a lot of times we forget how sometimes there are moments in people's lives when they're going through stuff and you happen to be the piece of content or art, whatever you want to call it, that lets them escape, that gets them through that. And so there's people who have said, like, you know, I was really sick. I was stuck at home. And I just watched y'all on a loop and it helped me through. There's people who've said, you know, like my dad passed away, and I find a lot of strength in Alastor's character, and how he's always smiling. And it's interesting, you know, because he says in the show, a smile is a valuable tool, which sounds very sort of manipulative if you think about it. But for some people to take that as I can get through this. I can just keep smiling and get through this. That's one of the reasons I love conventions so much is, yeah, they're fun, but yeah, I mean, it's wild that people will say, "Can I have a hug?" and they cry. And you understand that they've sort of, you know, I recorded this thing 3 years ago, right? But they've lived with these characters. I mean, they've lived with these characters so much and have dove so deep into them. It's incredibly moving. It's incredibly moving. And there's times that I will just sit there and if I have a sort of quiet moment at a con, look around and just start crying because I'm kind of blown away by what has happened. I think that as an actor, there's different reasons to get into acting. One is that you just love play and you love to be silly or to be sad, right? And do things. Another is to feel like you have some kind of impact, whether that's an emotional impact, whether it's raising money for causes that need help. When you sit back at a convention and you see people dressed like the radio demon and they've poured their artistic energy into things, or like I'll walk around Artist Alley and I'll see art that just like brings me to fucking tears because I'm just like, you were so inspired by our show that you then went to your computer or easel or whatever the fuck and put your artistic heart into that. It's so moving, and it's like I'll never get over it. I don't think I'll ever get over it. It it is knowing that you're part of something that has so much impact. And, you know, it's hard to know, like, some people say like, oh, you mean so much to me. And I'm like, well, Alastor means so much to you. And Alastor was largely created by Viv, currently voiced by me, right? So it's hard to know like how much of that space you occupy, but to know that you're part of it is really, really beautiful.
What's it like when you're on the panel and there's just a sea of people, and then that one kid gets up and their voice is trembling and they're shaking and they finally get to ask you that question? What does that feel like for you to know that you're part of that?
When they ask what Pokemon would you be? Oh, it means so much.
Does it change your life?
Yeah, I mean, it's wild. It's really wild because it reminds you of when you were a kid and when you like looked up to these actors. And I keep a pretty good perspective about it, that like I know like a 12-year-old kid looks at me like some sort of like, you know, I don't know, like puts me on a pedestal, right? And I know that that's not real, right? I'm just a dude who's sitting cross-legged on a couch. Do you know what I mean? And I do funny voices into a microphone, and it gets sort of warped and elevated by a capitalist structure and one of the largest corporations in the world, right? So like a lot of that is sort of like created, right? But it's also, the feelings are real, right? The kid is awed in that moment. And not just kids, right? Adults at times as well. And it's so funny because recording season 1 took me a total of 18 hours.
How many days?
6 days, 3 hours a shot.
Does your voice get raspy after that amount of time?
Depends on what I've done, but yeah, it can. Yeah. So that was 18 hours of my life 3 years ago, right? I spend more than 18 hours in one convention weekend with fans of the show, right? And so there's an element to it that feels unreal and will always sort of feel unreal, because this thing that I did 3 years ago for 18 hours, right, half of a work week for most people, right, has come to mean so much. And it's real and it's not real, right? It's real because the show is real and it's great and it's touched people, but it's not real because it's like, it doesn't make sense. Do you know what I mean? And so I think that that's allowed me to keep a sort of healthy perspective about it, that like, this is all fun and silly. It could go away tomorrow because you never know what happens in this world. But that's what's allowed me, I think, to enjoy every minute of it. Is that I never have for 1 second have felt like I deserve this. I earned this, right? I think that I am good in the show. I recognize that, right? But I think that a lot of this is just sort of magic, and that's what makes me really, really grateful for it. I think when you come, at least for me, I think when you come to a thing of like, I deserve this, it puts you in a place where you sort of feel above things, where you can have sort of an attitude about things. And maybe that's just me. Maybe that's my own like thing. But for me, I think it's more special to just think this is just, in a lot of ways, just sort of luck and magic, that like I happen to be alive at this moment. Some rando fucking happened to, you know, video me doing a show, and Viv decided on that day to do a Google search or a YouTube search. It's incredible. And so I just feel like every day I just feel so lucky. I feel so grateful.
What's the rush you get after you finish a scene with Will Ferrell?
Oh, man.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, working with Will Ferrell and Paul Rudd was super, super fun. That was really fun because those two are sort of giants in the world of comedy, right? And I felt very, very comfortable with them. And part of that is a credit to them because they're great scene partners. But part of it was that I was like, oh, I can hang. I can hang with these two.
When did you realize that?
I think it was like a couple takes in, 2 or 3 takes in.
You felt good.
Yeah. I didn't feel intimidated. And part of that is I had met Will Ferrell before because he executive produced LA to Vegas, but I hadn't acted with him. But I didn't feel intimidated, again, in part because they are not intimidating performers. They're certainly, I could see being intimidated by their talent and stardom because they have both of those in spades. But I was like, I earned this job. I did this audition. They decided they wanted me, so I deserve to be here. It was great. It was really, really fun.
Do you remember watching it when it came out?
Sure. Yeah. It was it was frustrating because I was in the first episode and the 8th episode, so I had to wait
7 weeks.
Yeah, and in the 8th episode was the scene that I had a little more to do in. Plus, I had 28 years of age makeup.
Which you look great, by the way.
Thanks. It was so fun. That's actually my Zoom picture, so that when I jump on a Zoom, I look 70 years old, and I just want people to go, oh God, Amir looks rough. And then when the camera comes on, they see
he's got it together.
Yeah, watching it was a blast, and I ended up just being really happy with how it turned out. And it was very sweet. A good friend of mine, Omid Abtahi, who's a very accomplished actor as well, he called me. He's like, man, you're just so at ease on screen. And to hear that from him, and to sort of, like, I felt that at the time. It meant a lot to hear that from him, because I was like, that's what I want to feel like, and that's what I want it to look like. So I was happy that it came off that way.
What to expect when you're expecting.
Yes.
How did that audition come around?
That was, so the role in that was Patel. And so every Indian and Middle Eastern dude my age was auditioning for that.
You remember in the audition room?
Oh, sure. Yeah. It was just me and like a bunch of guys who I always audition against. Friends. You know what I mean? Like, we've all become friends at this point. You know, it was a pretty straightforward audition. You know, I think they probably went into that going, well, we've got a lot of names, so it's got to be, again, someone who can hold their own. I have a pretty extensive resume of like standing near famous people, Joe. So they're like, well, he's stood near famous people a lot. And so I think that I'm sure that played into it, but I also think, you know, I nailed it in the room. And most auditions are very, very similar. I mean, nowadays they're almost identical. You just do them in your living room with your phone and you email them. But even before COVID, you know, you go in, there's the casting director, maybe the director, you do it, you get a couple adjustments, and that's it. You know, I've auditioned for really, really important directors. It's not that different from auditioning for the guy who's doing his first directing job on like NCIS or whatever.
You said they look at your background. Do they look into you being a groundlings trained?
I think that's on my resume, and I think most of the casting directors in town are aware, if not that I have groundlings experience, they know like this guy's an improviser. Like, this guy's funny. This guy will give you options on the day. This guy can play. This guy can hang with Will Ferrell.
That's great.
Yeah.
Your high five with Chris Rock. Did you get that every take? Did you ever miss?
No, I think we got it every time. I think we got it every time. Those scenes were tough because you're dealing with guys who are, everyone else there is an improviser too, right? And so as accomplished as I am, they're all more accomplished than I, right? Rob Hubel, Tom Lennon, Chris Rock. And so that was one of the first things I've done with several stars. And so it was difficult to know sort of when to take center stage and when to go, this is my moment. I don't want to shrink into the background here.
Is it one camera?
I think it was probably one. We might have had two on some takes on that movie. But you know, it's tough because you want to have your moments to shine, not just because you want to shine, but because if you're not taking moments to shine, you're not serving the project, right? Like, they hired you to shine, right? It's like, I heard this basketball coach saying one time that, like, if you miss a couple shots, it is bad for your team, and you're a shooter, it is bad for your team if you stop shooting. Like, you have to keep shooting. Otherwise, if the other team goes, oh, he's going to stop shooting, suddenly they don't have to cover you. They can cover everybody else, and you're screwing up the rest of the team. So you have to keep shooting, even if you've missed a couple. I always thought that was a really good lesson, like, just for life.
Yeah, that applies to so many fields.
Yeah. And so in that movie, I was like, where are my shots? I had to look for my shots while still deferring to Chris fucking Rock, you know, one of the greatest sort of comedians of our time.
When a group like that gets together, does the script really get derailed, or is everyone pretty like line, improv, line, improv, line, improv?
I think it depends on the project. For us, there was definitely some improvising. And there was also, like, punching up between takes, right? Like,
what does punching up mean?
So punching up is like when you have a script and you go, what if we tweak this line right here? What if I bet we could make this line a little bit funnier? And when you have an accomplished screenwriter like Tom Lennon as an actor in your movie, you'd be ridiculous not to let him sort of take a punch-up pass at stuff, right? Same with Chris Rock. And so every now and then there'd be someone be like, hey, on this one, I'm going to say this time. At the same time, the studio is always very like, okay, but let's make sure we get at least one as written. You always hear, can we get one as written? Can we just get one as written?
And that's normally the studio watching?
Yeah, the studio and or the writer and or the director. Because you want to feel, because the script has gone through rounds of notes, right? And so when you get to set, there's a version that everyone is happy with.
It's signed off. They've
right.
paid for it.
Right. And those quotes are because not everyone's happy. But there's a version that has been signed off on. And so you're sort of you're fucking with somebody's bag if you don't get that.
Have you ever done a Super Bowl commercial?
I have. I did one. It's considered one of the best Super Bowl commercials ever. It was for Bridgestone tires. And we're in a truck. We're wearing tuxedos, and there's an orca in the back of the truck.
Real?
No. Jesus.
I don't know what time frame this is.
I felt so bad for that orca in the back of the truck.
But the commercial came out great. We sold so many tires.
So we're barreling down the road, and then we come to the edge of a pier and we peel out, and the orca goes flying into the water. And so clearly we were trying to get the orca back to the water. That was the point. And someone says something like, "Best bachelor party ever." Bridgestone tires. And that played on the Super Bowl, and that played a lot for like a year after that. And I think I've done a couple others. I got cut out of one with Aquafina last year, the year before.
Are you numb to that at this point?
Being cut out of a commercial?
Yeah, like it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, if you get cut out of it, you're getting paid a lot less, right? Because for commercials, you get paid when it airs. You get
every time.
So it's different on network TV. So like ABC, NBC, CBS, you get paid every time. And then for cable and internet, you get paid one fee per length of time.
Like a quarter. So
yeah, for cable, it's a quarter. For internet, it changes. Like it'll be, it can be 8 weeks, it can be 4 weeks, it can be a year. So yeah, so there's different amounts.
Super Bowl commercials are notorious for being crazy expensive.
Yes.
Does the pay?
No.
Same as a regular commercial?
Same exact, yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of people are like, "Oh, you were in a Super Bowl commercial. You must be rich." And like, no, I only get paid if it, like Bridgestone aired all year long. The problem with a lot of Super Bowl commercials is they only air that once. So you actually don't get paid very much at all. Oh. Yeah.
What was the best paying commercial that you ever had where it just went on forever?
I want to say Starburst. Starburst ran for like 8 years.
Oh my God.
And it went away for 2 years and then came back. It was crazy.
It just kept working?
Yeah. It just worked.
So cool.
Yeah. And it's so funny. A lot of it depends on like the sort of like the how much money they have in their advertising budget.
Right.
And there are companies that are like, we need new commercials every month. And if you do one of those commercials, great, but then you only get paid for like that month. And then there's other ones that are like, look, we don't have money for a ton of commercials, so we're going to make one every year and just run it once per year. That's great. That's great for me.
How many commercials have you done?
Over 100.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's times when I did like a campaign, like I did 7 for Domino's? No, 7 for like Pringles, 4 for Domino's.
Was it consistently you just kept being the guy?
There was 1 year where I did 35.
Of Domino's?
No.
Oh, 35 commercials.
Yeah. This was probably 15 years ago. 15 years ago, I did 35 in 1 year. And that was because I think that was the year I did 7 Pringles, 4 Domino's, and then a bunch of others.
Did they want you because...
I think I did 7 Old Navy, and I got cut out of all 7.
Did they want you because you were in so many? Like, did that work in your favor?
No. Generally, no.
Like, does a brand normally want you if you're only the guy for...
Usually, yeah.
Pep Boys?
Yeah, usually, like, it can actually hurt you to be in a lot of commercials. Because they'll be like, oh, he's in all these commercials. But I've been really lucky that I don't tend to be in too many commercials at the same time. I tend to be in, like, 1 or 2. They run. They stop running. And then I book another one.
So is Flo from Progressive killing it?
Yeah, sure. She's a friend of mine. But yeah, she's...
Because her commercial's constantly running?
Yeah.
Same with the Progressive guy?
Sure, yeah. I mean, if you get one of those campaigns, you're set for that entire year. Yeah.
Do you still speak Simish?
Simlish?
Simlish.
I don't speak Simlish. I can try to, but...
Can you try?
Yeah, well, yes.
How does it work?
Well, it works differently for different people. But what I did was I made a grid of all of the letters of the alphabet plus like other sounds that are not in our alphabet, like which is like that's in Persian, or like which is in Spanish. And what I would just do is I would let my eyes wander around the grid as I thought what I wanted to say. Yeah.
That's crazy. Do you remember doing that then?
Sure. Yeah. This was probably 25 years ago. So yeah, it's a long time.
That language is so unique.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how other actors did it, but yeah, like that worked for me. What a funny audition now that I think about it. Probably had to, yeah.
Was that the first Sims game?
No, this was one of the expansion packs. It was called like Hot Date.
Oh, I oddly remember that.
But it was early on.
Yeah.
It's definitely early on.
Back to HAZBIN.
Okay.
It's been confirmed that there's an Alastor backstory in season 2.
Yes.
What was your reaction when reading that script? Did that fulfill you? Were you excited to tell this?
Yes. Oh, certainly. Yes. I was very excited to know that we were going to get into that. Some of it I had already known about. Because Vivienne had told me in season 1.
Were you guys like in a vault with the door locked?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yes. She wrote it on a piece of paper and then swallowed it after she.
That way, no one.
Exactly.
So
and she didn't want to say it because you never know.
Cameras everywhere. Which there's none here. If you want to just tell me what happens.
So some of it I had known already, and then some of it was new to me, and I was delighted. I think people are gonna like it. There was an article somewhere that was like, Alastor's backstory is a key focus of season 2. I wouldn't go that far.
They were just clickbaiting it?
I think they were just, yeah. But it is definitely like, we definitely get into it. And again, I want to be clear. I'm only saying what I've said because Viv cleared me too. Otherwise, don't be asking me about spoilers, y'all.
And then there were some fan questions. Could we just fire through them?
Sure. Oh, did like people, you said send me questions for Amir?
Yes.
Fun, cute.
What's been your favorite part of working on HAZBIN, just voice acting in general? Thanks.
My favorite part is conventions, because I love my cast. I love spending time with them. They're funny and fun and sweet, and I love the people who love our show. It's funny that I'm working on this big show right now as a voice actor because I don't like doing things by myself.
So this is perfect for an ensemble.
So what I'm saying, like going into a booth and doing something by yourself, that's not why I got into this. I got into this because I love being with people.
Oh, the
I
irony.
love creating with people. And just being with people. I'm just a really social person. And, when I was in high school, I was in this like musical theater company, and there was like 40 of us, and we did like 5 musicals a year. I got so much training. I got so much experience doing that. But I loved being with my cast and doing shit all the time. And so again, the 18 hours that I did 3 years ago doesn't compare to all the time that I'm spending with my peeps now. And by peeps, I mean the people who love the show and the people who make the show.
In conflict between Alastor and Vox, who is more to blame?
Boy, I mean, honestly, like that story is just so...
Do you do a lot of improv for the role of Alastor?
I do a little bit.
Is it give us what we have written and then punch it up?
Yeah, I mean, every now and then I just think of an idea. I think after we've gotten it as written, sometimes I'll go, hey, can I try something? And they always say yes. And I don't know, again, 3 years ago, I don't know how many of my improvs they kept or if my punch-ups they kept. I don't do a ton. Part of that is because, especially compared to like Adam, my character has his shit together, right? And so what's on the page is usually dead on. Whereas Adam, not to say that what Viv's written isn't dead on, but there's so much room for Alex to go just buck wild that you'd be silly not to let him do that, right? Like when he, in the song, when he goes, guitar solo, fuck yeah, that was an improv. Like, that's some crazy shit that Alex can pull out because it fits the character. But again, like I said, like, Alastor's like impeccable. And so when Viv has decided what he has to say, you know, 99% of the time, there's no reason to fuck with it.
What character do you enjoy Alastor interacting with the most?
I would have to say Lucifer, because at least in season 1, he really gets the better of Vox, and so it feels kind of easy. But Lucifer, there's a lot of sort of back and forth, and it feels like it's just it crackles a little more.
If you could have voiced any other character in Hazbin Hotel, who would it be and why?
I think Charlie. I think you know, the easy answer is Pentious because he's so weird. and it's just fun, and especially what Alex does with Pentious is so delightfully weird. But I really relate to Charlie's idealism and sweetness, and I don't get to do that very often.
Would you like to see more about Alastor's backstory, meaning the crimes he committed on Earth?
I want a whole fucking prequel series of Alastor. So yes.
When's season 2 coming out? It slips.
I don't know. But I will say Viv did an interview a few months ago, and in that interview she said at least a year. So I would say, look, your guess is as good as mine. I know it takes a lot of time to animate shit.
Are you aware of the process of it? Like where they are now? Or you're not really involved in that?
I know that they've started animating. I know that. And I know that Viv posted, she showed something to Christina and Joelle. I don't know exactly what it was, but the fact that she showed them something tells me there's something to look at. Now, I don't know if those are stick figures or if they're colored. I doubt they're colored because if there's still a year to go. And then I don't know. I don't know what the animatic process is. Is there a very rudimentary animatic and then a fucking kick-ass animatic? I don't really know. I don't know. I don't know all that process. But I know they've certainly started animating because we finished recording months ago.
Being in the industry for as long as you have, is it crazy that Amazon greenlit season 3 and 4 before 2 even came out?
It is, yeah. It's funny. Yes and no. Yes, because that doesn't really happen much. It's very, very, very rare. But it doesn't surprise me because 1 did so well. The writing for 2 is fantastic. And so if the writing for 2 is fantastic and 1 did so well, then it stands to reason that 2 is going to do well. So why not lock in 3 and 4, give Viv the sort of creative freedom to begin laying the groundwork for 3 and 4, right? To give her the security as an artist to know I have a home for 3 and 4, right? That's only going to make the quality of 3 and 4 better, and hopefully sooner.
What an interesting perspective.
Yeah.
Is it crazy the way that the industry just went from like TV now to streaming, internet? Because you've seen it all.
Yes. Maybe sound so old.
No, in the coolest possible way.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's really it's hard to keep up with at times. And I feel very much like a monkey who is just swung from vine to vine and doesn't know where the next vine is, but just swings. And then right as I get to the edge of this one, there's a vine, sweet. And I just keep going. Yeah, I feel like I've managed to keep surfing those waves and finding those monkey vines. And again, I just feel really lucky.
Keep killing it. Kill it on your audition today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Guys, go follow Amir. He's going to be linked down below. Instagram, X, anywhere else?
Not yet.
Where else? Why aren't you on TikTok?
I'm scared of TikTok. I'm scared.
Yeah, you should get on.
I mean, I have an account.
I know, but you don't post much.
I don't post at all. I think, and there's one just like shitty like selfie of me going like that, and people are like, "That's not you, right?" And I'm like, "No, that is me. It's just I'm
working on it. I'm working on my TikTok.
We'll see. We'll see.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Lightweights out. Thank you. That was so good.
Yeah.
So good.
Good.
Thank you.